Hi, this is Tim from eGeek Media, and today I'm making a tutorial on responsive web design and how to go about it in 3 steps. I'm using some files called HTML5 reset because it's a very good starting point, I believe. And I've made a bit of a mock-up using these files, but as a starting point, what's in the package? It's a folder structure representing an embryo of a website. And using these files, I've made a mock-up for this tutorial, and so this is what it looks like. It's nothing flash, but it does show you, I've set it out in a way to show you what happens when you start configuring a website in terms of responsive design. And so at the moment, if we reduce the width of the website, nothing really happens. It doesn't adjust for smaller screen sizes such as mobile and tablet screen sizes, but that's what we're going to do with this tutorial. So yeah, the framework of the website is split into thirds. So the left header here is 2/3, the right header is 1/3. The main content area is 2/3. I've included some lorem text there. I've also included an image because it's important to consider images when you're doing responsive design. And the sidebar is 1/3 here too. I've included a navigation and some headings, heading text here because it's important to see how text changes in terms of responsive design. And the footer down here, I've split that into thirds also. So if you look at the files themselves, this is the index.html file. All of this stuff here in the head section, that's from the HTML5 reset. And this is the code here that I've written for this mock-up here. It's just a typical website. And this is the style.css file. Okay, so for this tutorial, I guess I'm assuming that you do know a little bit about HTML and CSS and you've perhaps started coding, but you're sort of looking to enter the stage of knowing how to design for mobile and tablet devices also. And if you want to follow along using exercise files, you can go to my website, which is www.egeekmedia.com.au/responsive web design, and you can download the files there. So step 1, we need to set a meta viewport tag, and this is what a meta viewport tag looks like. Excuse me. And this is what you need to include in the head section of your website, between the head and the /head tags. What does it do? This tag asks the browser to render the width of the web page at the width of the screen of the device you're using. So on the left here, we have an iPhone 5 screen, and this is what that mock-up of mine would look like on that screen without a meta viewport tag. And we've often seen websites like this. Without the tag, the browser will zoom out to fill the entire screen with the entire website. And so the smaller the screen you have, the more zoomed out the website will appear to be. And so often you do need to manually zoom in with your fingers to read the text on a website in this case. But on the right here, we have a phone with the meta viewport tag included in the head section of the website. And so with the tag, the browser will zoom in and render the width of the website equal to the device width. And this means that I think the device width of the iPhone 5 is 320 pixels. So it'll match pixel for pixel in terms of device width. So it'll take the 320 pixels from the left here and display it here. And so irregular font sizes, you can normally read text in this case, but using the tag on its own is not wise because you'll need to manually touch scroll to see the rest of the website. And so that's why the next steps in responsive design are important to do. Okay, I'll show you what that looks like in terms of the code. So if you go to the index.html file and you go to the head section, this is where you put the meta viewport tag. And because I'm using HTML5 reset, the meta viewport tag is automatically included in the head section just here. So, but if you were writing your own code and you weren't using something like HTML5 reset, then you would need to include the meta viewport tag in there. Okay, step number 2, we need to create a flexible layout or fluid grid. And this means setting up your site and your assets to resize on their own according to the browser width. And this includes creating flexible containers, flexible type, flexible margins and padding, and flexible images. And I believe this gets you halfway to having a responsive site. So if we go to our style.css file, this is where we're going to create our flexible containers. At the moment they are static. So if we look at our parent container, the page wrap, it's got a width of 1500 pixels, and we need to convert this into percentages in order to make it flexible. So if we take the width and we make this a maximum width of 1500 pixels, and we give this a width of 100%, that'll make the page wrap flexible. And because we've got text in our main content area, we need to allow for the text to push down on the page, and so we need to allow a flexible height also. So if we give this a minimum height of 1500 pixels, it'll still keep some structure to the page wrap, and if we add a height of 100%, that'll allow the height to be flexible also. With the header, we've got the left header and the right header making up 1500 pixels of the width together, so that keeps this header container at 1500 pixels. But if we look at our mock-up, we can see the left header is 2/3 and the right header is 1/3. So in terms of percentage, we need to put in 66% here and 33% for the right header. So we give this a maximum width of 1000, and we put in the width. It's actually 66.6667%. We do need to include some decimals there. We don't need to worry about the height here because there's not a whole lot of text in the header. For the right header, we need to give this a maximum of 500 pixels and a width of 33.3333%. I like to do 4 decimal places. Okay, for the main content, that's also 2/3, so we give this a maximum width of 1000 pixels and a width of 66.6667%. And we also need to make the height flexible also, so if we give that a minimum height of 1000 and height 100%. Okay, and for the sidebar, that's 1/3, so we give this a maximum width of 500 pixels and a width of 33.3333%. And we should be able to leave the height as it is for that at the moment. If we move down to the footer, we need to make the footer container flexible, so we give that a maximum width of 1500 pixels and a width of 100%. Okay, with the left footer, the middle footer and the right footer, we need to take into account that the left footer is sitting there by itself with a float left, but the middle footer and the right footer are nested inside the nested footer. And so the nested footer is the parent container to the middle footer and the right footer. So what we need to do here is left footer, we give a maximum width 500 pixels, and that's a third of the page, so a width 33.3333%. We can leave the height as it is. The middle footer, we give a maximum width of 500 pixels also, but because the middle footer and the right footer are nested inside the nested footer, they take up half the space each. So we need to give a width of 50%. We can leave the height as it is there, and we need to do the same for the right footer. Max width 500 pixels and width 50%. And the nested footer, we need to make that flexible also. And so the nested footer is actually a width of 66.6667%. So if we save that and we refresh, and we should be seeing flexible containers, whereas before they were static. And the same with the footer. So that's working quite nicely. And it, as you can see, once you adjust the width, the text here, you can see it pushes down on that container. And that image, what we need to do is, in terms of images, a good way to make those flexible is to give an image, so it targets all images, and we need to give a max width of 100%. So if we save that and refresh, you can see the image resizes, and so that targets all images. Okay, another thing you can do is give percentages to your padding. So the padding around the main content area here is 10 pixels. You can also make that percentage also. So what you need to do is get your calculator, and you take 10 pixels divided by the maximum width of the parent container, and so that's 1,000. So 10 divided by 1,000 times 100 is 1. So if we were to write in 1% here, and we save that and we refresh, you'll be able to see the padding there adjusts. You can see it slightly adjusts there because it's a percentage. Okay, so we're at step number 3, and this is all about using media queries in your CSS file, and this is where things start to get pretty interesting in terms of responsive design. And using media queries in your style.css file, it's like assigning different style sheets based on browser window size, whether it's for mobile, for tablet, or for extra large desktop size screens. And you can style your website at various browser widths, all in the same CSS file. So it makes it really quite a powerful way to design websites for different size screens. So if we have a look at our style.css file, you can see below all the code that I've written, I've got four different media queries here. The first one is for iPads for a maximum width of 1024 pixels. The next one is for large screen mobiles, a maximum width of 767 pixels. And for iPhones and other mobiles, maximum width of 480 pixels. And I've also got a print styles media query down here. So that's styling your website for when someone wants to print out a portion of your website. Another good thing to mention here is that each one of these media queries is considered a breakpoint, and you often hear this term in terms of responsive design, the word breakpoint, because it refers to the point at which, in terms of the width of the website, that it changes, that the code changes. So for each breakpoint, like for number 1, as you get down to 1024 pixels, that's where the first breakpoint is going to kick in. And as you get down to 767 pixels, that's when the second breakpoint is going to kick in, and the third, and so on. And so it's good to know what that term means. Okay, the first thing that we'll do is focus on the iPads. And as you can see, I've got the mock-up here open, and I've opened up the developer tools at the bottom here, and you can access your developer tools by right-clicking in your browser window and clicking Inspect Element, and that'll open your browser, your developer tools at the bottom. And so you can leave it just like that, and what it does is it allows you to see the width of your website in terms of pixels. And so having your developer tools open, it allows you to see when your breakpoints are about to kick in, which is a really handy thing to do. Okay, and as we see with the first breakpoint at 1024 pixels, as we get underneath 1024 pixels, things start getting a bit more cramped here in the header. You can see that the title here, a responsive design tutorial, is forced to another line. So what we might do is make a bit more room for that title. So we'll bring the right header down below underneath the left header. So if we'll go back to our code, and what I normally do is find the code that I want to change and highlight it, copy it, and then paste it in the media query. And the changes we need to make here, first of all, we need to make the header a bit more flexible in terms of its height. And so we'll give that a minimum height of 250 pixels. We'll give that a height of 100% to make it flexible. And with the left header, we want it to take up the entire width of the browser. So our breakpoint is at 1024 pixels, so we need to also make this a maximum width of 1024 pixels also. And we need to give it a width of 100% because we want it to take up that entire space. We can leave the height as it is. We can give this a float of none since we don't need it to float left anymore. And we can get rid of the things that we haven't made changes to because it'll just save some space. Okay, for the right header, we want to give that a maximum width of 1024 pixels also. And we want to give that a width of 100% as well. And maybe we'll just change the height on this one, so just to show you that it can be done. So give that 100 pixels, give that a float of none, and we'll get rid of the background color for now. We can also get rid of this header H1 because we're not making any changes to that. and click save. Now if we refresh, now you can see when we get down below 1024 pixels that the right header falls underneath the left header, which is what we wanted it to do. And the height of it is also changed as well. So that right header is just 100 pixels now as well. So another thing you can do is change the text size for all of the text on your website. If you've got a body tag in your index.html file, you'll see that all of the text, all of your code is inside the body tag. So you can change the font size for all of the text on your website all at once. So if we grab this body tag here, copy it, and paste it in our first media query, we can change the text size to say 12 pixels. You can even change the font if you want to. So that means that when you get down to iPads, you could have a different font if you like. But for now, we'll save that as 12 pixels. We'll go back to our mockup, and as we change the width of the website, you can see when we get down to that first breakpoint that all of the text on the site changes. And so it's quite a handy thing to have when you want to change all of the text and the font size for mobile and tablet devices. Okay, we'll move on to the next breakpoint, which is the media query for large screen mobiles. And we might make some changes to the sidebar and the main content this time. So what I'll do is grab all of the code for the sidebar, the main content, and the navigation, and paste it just here. Okay, for the main content, we have a maximum width of 1000 pixels. We can leave that as it is because it's greater than the media query of 767 pixels. So we can actually just delete that. We can give this a width of 100%, float none. We can keep the minimum height and the height the same, so we can get rid of those. Maybe we might change the background color, and so we might make that yellow. And we could add something if we want to, say a border. So if we make that 5 pixels, solid, and we make it red. We can leave these for now, we can delete those. The aside, we need to make this a maximum width of 767 because it's less than the media query. And we'll give that 100%, float none, and we'll leave color white and background color red. And for the navigation, what we're going to do at this point is I've got two different navigations, and the one that's showing at the moment is the navigation here in the sidebar. But when I was writing this code, I put in two different navigations. There's one that we're seeing in the sidebar, that's it there in the index.html file, and there's another one in this div called nav2. And at the moment in the code, nav2 is set to not display, but the first nav is set to just display block. And I'm showing these you this because it's one of the common things that you see in responsive design is to hide one element for desktop screens and display another. And so what we're going to do is do that in reverse. And so we're going to make this display none, and you'll see what I'm doing in a minute. And we'll make the nav2 display block. So we're hiding one and we're showing another. And I'll just leave those there for now because I want to make some more changes, but I'll just save that for now and then we'll go and have a look. Okay, so you see when we get down to 767, that's when the changes take place. And so the main content, we've got yellow and yellow background and white text, and we've got a red border just here that I included. It doesn't look that particularly good, but it just gives you an idea of what actually goes on. The sidebar here is still the same height. Now we need to adjust that because that's just way too large. But the thing I wanted to show you was that you can see the navigation here in the sidebar. It's there, but once we get past the breakpoint of 767, you'll see that it disappears from here and the navigation in the header appears. So that's one good thing with responsive design, is that you can do this, is to have one element hidden while you're showing another and then have it reverse when a media query kicks in. So we might also reduce the height of this sidebar. So I'd say reduce it down to 400. Save that and have a look. Yeah, that reduces it quite a lot. And we might make some changes to the navigation. So for now we can delete those. Oops, just deleted that. And so we've got a nav2 display block. I might add, say, a nav2 unordered list. So we'll target an unordered list and we'll give this a display inline. So if we save that, so it displays along one line like that. And you can also do things like you could float this right. Save. If we have a look now, it's on this side, and we can reduce the size of the left header again. So if we take the code from the media query before and we add it again here, we can delete a lot of that. If we give it a height of 150 pixels, save that, and that's starting to get closer to what a lot of websites look like in terms of headers and navigation. So you can have one navigation appear and disappear when you're designing with media queries. Okay, so now we're down to our iPhone and other mobiles media query at maximum width 480 pixels. We might make some changes to the footer for this media query. So I'll copy all of the footer and paste that just there. Okay, so what we might do is allow the right footer to fall below and take up 100% of the width, and leave the left footer and the middle footer above, sharing the space. So first we need to make the footer parent container flexible, so give that a minimum height 250 pixels and a height of 100%. Oops. And we can delete that little bit of code. So the left footer, we might make that say 40%. And the maximum width is fine because it's greater than the breakpoint. And we'll leave the height as it is. The middle footer, we will make that 60%, and the maximum width is fine, so we can get rid of that. The height is fine. We do need to make that float right now because it's going to be on the other side. And maybe we'll change the color, so we'll make it green, so 0 F0. And the right footer, we want to make that 100%. And if we make that float none. Okay, and the nested footer, we need to make that width 100% also. And we'll just see what that does. So we'll save that and we'll refresh. Right, well, you can see the color changes, but we want the left footer and the middle footer side by side. Okay, so it looks like we'll have to give a negative margin. We'll do the trick. So negative 250 because that's the height. I'll save, have a look. It's disappeared. Oh, margin top. There it is. So if we test the breakpoint, you can see it changes when we reach that breakpoint again. Okay, so that's basically it in terms of responsive web design. I hope you've got something out of this video, and I hope that it's enough to get you started and get you designing for mobile and tablet devices as well as desktop devices. And but definitely, if you wanted to find out more, there's a lot of resources online that you can find more information on responsive design, and you can there's a whole range of media queries to have a look at. It's not just media only and screen. You can target a whole range of devices, and so I definitely recommend having a look. So just to recap the steps that we went through in this video: number one, you need to set a meta viewport tag. Number two, you need to create a flexible layout. And number three, you use media queries in your CSS files. And for more web design tips, you can visit my blog at www.egeekmedia.com.au/web design blog. And thanks for watching. If you like this video, please click like below, or you can leave a comment. Be much appreciated. Thanks a lot. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.